What is going on, you beautiful people? I hope you are all having a wonderful day. Today we are going to be talking about the pros and the cons of Centennial, Colorado. And hey, if this is your first time to the channel and you are, maybe thinking about moving to Colorado or just interested in learning a little bit more about Denver or some of the surrounding suburbs like Centennial that we're talking about today, make sure and hit the subscribe button below, hit the bell icon for notifications. This way you can be the first to know about any videos I put out that might be relevant to you and your situation. You'll be the first to learn about Denver and the market and what's going on here. If you don't already know, my name is Michael. I get people reaching out all the time, looking to move to Denver. And whether you're moving in next week or a month, 2 years, whatever it is, I'm more than happy to help make a transition out here as smooth as possible. So if that's the case, my contact info is below. So just shoot me a text, shoot me an email, give me a call, whatever's best for you, and I'd be happy to help you in whatever way I can. But with all that being said, let's get right into the video. All right, so if you're not familiar with Centennial, Colorado, it's probably because you may have never heard of it. It's a relatively new city. It was formed in 2001, so it's only about 23 years old. And I actually live in Centennial right now. I love it here. So I'm gonna try and keep this as unbiased as possible, but it's really a great city. If you look on a map, it's kind of funny. It's this little tiny, it's very long. We're actually cut in half by I-25, but very long little city. It looks really weird on a map. So there can be vastly different areas in Centennial, and the west side is very different from the east side, the middle is very different from the west, and so on. But for the most part, a lot of these things we all have in common throughout. And yeah, let's just get right into the pros. All right, the first really nice thing about living in Centennial is your proximity to Denver. You're really not far from a lot of things. You're kind of in a middle ground, and it depends on where in Centennial you are, but for the most part, if you're trying to get anywhere, you don't have a whole lot of space to get around. But for the most part, regardless of where you're at, it's really easy to kind of get anywhere. The roads are really well set up, so if you're trying to get to downtown Denver, it's not too hard to get there. And if you're kind of living on the outskirts, you can even get on E470 and kind of go up and around to where you need to go. But 225 is not too far from a lot of Centennial. Getting to I-25 is not difficult. So traveling around Denver is not necessarily difficult in Centennial. It's really easy to kind of travel around. Another nice thing about Centennial is it's relatively affordable compared to some of the other areas in Denver area. Median home price is about $695,000. That's single family homes. Now that's definitely a little bit on the higher side, but for the community that you're in, it's relatively affordable, especially if you're comparing it to some of the adjacent communities around you. And if you're looking for something even really affordable, go on to the eastern side of Centennial, and you can find homes in the 500,000s even. Median home price over there is about 585,000, but there's still plenty of smaller homes that are 3-bed, 2-bath that are in the 500 and sometimes even in like the high 400s. So probably one of the more affordable areas in the Denver area. And if you're on a budget and you still are looking for like a nice area to live, you don't necessarily need to be downtown. Centennial is a great place to take a look at and just field your options. The next thing to talk about is the outdoor recreation we have here. Lots of parks, lots of amenities outside, plenty of trails, plenty of bike paths. So if you're kind of into that outdoorsy, recreation type stuff, plenty of things out here for you. And it's just one of those things that's really popular in Colorado, so it's nice to have in your area, because there are some places that don't necessarily have that. Some of the new areas don't necessarily have all those trails, but plenty of trails, so you can take your dog out, all that stuff. And you're not necessarily gonna get bored. You don't have to go very far if you're looking for something to do or just get outside and get a little bit active. On top of that, because it's a relatively active community in Centennial, you're not gonna have to go far for gyms, yoga studios, fitness centers, anything of the sort. Or if you're looking for a store that sells supplements, they're all over the place. You're not gonna have a hard time finding those places. It's just one of the things that it really is all in Colorado, but I feel like especially Centennial, you see them all over the place. You don't have to go far if you're trying to get some of those things into your daily life and stay active. You can find a gym within pretty much a mile of anywhere you're at in Centennial. Another thing Centennial is really good about is the shopping and dining, kind of like the things that you want to go out and do often. They just have so many options for it. You don't have to go far to find a nice little local restaurant. Lots of chain restaurants if that's your thing, but you also have a lot of your mom and pop, hole-in-the-wall restaurants that just usually have delicious food. And they're all over the place. Lots of great Mexican food, lots of great Thai food, Indian food, you name it, they're not far from you at all. So if you're looking for something like that, or you're very interested in the food side of things, Centennial has great options for you. Plenty of shopping to do as well. You don't have to go very far. On top of that, they also have a lot of local amenities, plenty of really nice libraries, plenty of rec centers that are just all really well taken care of. And the community is usually really involved, so there's plenty of events going on year round. You're not going to be busy. You're not going to get bored with stuff like that. If that's something you are consistently doing and looking for, you're going to have plenty of that throughout Centennial. Now, Centennial isn't perfect, although I will say, it's got, pretty good things going for it. One of the things I'd say is the traffic. If you are trying to get on one of the main roads to get into the city, you're commuting, it's going to be a little bit busy in the morning. It's going to be a little bit busy in the afternoon, or if there's a game going on. It's just, everyone's kind of on the outskirts, so everyone's trying to, funnel into those areas. So you're going to run into a little bit of traffic. I personally don't mind it. If you get up early enough, you can kind of skip a lot of that traffic. It's fairly tolerable. It's never really bumper to bumper, but for the most part, it's just a little bit busier than some of the other areas in Denver. Another thing is some of the areas in Centennial are a little bit newer, so those communities are going to have probably a little bit tighter HOA restrictions. So if the HOAs aren't your thing, you don't really like people telling you what to do, you might have a harder time finding something with a more relaxed HOA or just no HOA at all. It's kind of pretty much throughout, especially all the newer communities are going to have HOAs. So if you're looking for something that is less restrictive, maybe Northern Aurora might be something you're into, but for the most part, Centennial, it's going to have an HOA for the most part, and they're going to have some rules for you. I personally haven't heard any horror stories yet, but I'm sure there are, and I'm sure there's plenty out there. So just something to consider. The last thing that Centennial probably could do better at is nightlife, but I'd say for the most part, people that live in Centennial aren't necessarily looking for a very energetic lifestyle. So that's not something that necessarily I think people are looking for. I think there's a lot of younger people, younger families living in the area, so it's just a little bit more low-key, a lot of kids going to school. Now, I will say the last thing, not a whole lot of nightlife going on in Centennial. It's very low-key. There's definitely things that go on, but for the most part, if you're looking for something high energy late into the evening, Centennial's probably not the place you're going to be going. But I'd say Denver pretty much has all the areas combined covered. If you want to go do something, that's where you're going anyways. All the arenas are downtown, so it's probably where you're going. If you're going to a concert, you have Red Rocks. It's not very far, but for the most part, not a whole lot going on at night in Centennial for the most part. Oh, and one more thing that I kind of just thought of as I was making this video. If you are kind of on the eastern side of Centennial, then you're gonna have a little bit harder time getting to the mountains. If going to the mountains and skiing, hiking, biking, all that stuff is something you were trying to do multiple times a week, maybe Eastern Centennial might not be your thing. So I'd consider that necessarily a con. But if you are living kind of on the western side of Centennial, where it's a little bit more expensive, then you're pretty close to the mountains. So that would be a con, or a pro, sorry. Plenty of benefit, and you can get right into the mountains if you really need to. So just something to consider. Centennial is a very, very long, thin city, and doesn't even really make sense on how it looks on a map. But that's just what it is. Got to deal with it that way. But for the most part, plenty of things on both sides. Plenty of pros, plenty of cons. I personally love living in Centennial. I live in a place where it's very low key, but you're really close to the city. So, I can spend the majority of my time, hanging out, not doing a whole lot. And when I need to go into the city to do stuff, I'm right there. It's not very far. It doesn't bug me to drive 30 minutes into town to go do something for a day. But I hope you enjoyed this quick little video, and maybe you got some more insight on Centennial as a city, and maybe learned a few things. Maybe you decided, hey, maybe that's for me, or hey, maybe I hate Centennial. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, see you see you next time. Oh, and don't forget, if you are planning on moving here, you want some help, you need some, want to make it a little smoother transition than maybe the last time you moved somewhere, then don't forget to reach out. My contact information is below. I am more than happy to help in whatever way I can. Until next time.